So today we are going to graph lines using the slope and y-intercept. So we've talked about the y-intercept before, and we actually graphed lines using a y-intercept and an x-intercept. So we should be able to do that part first. Here we're only given the y-intercept. So our y-intercept is this positive 4 for the first problem. So we're going to take this positive 4 and we're going to put it on the y-axis. So again, that's the y-intercept. So we just go up 4 spaces and we put a dot. And that's our starting point. We always need a starting point for these problems, and that's where we are going to start. And so now we're going to use this slope. So the slope is what changes the line every time. And so if we take a look at this number here, and I'll rewrite it. Remember, slope, we can use the variable m. So that's what I'm going to do. So m, which stands for mountain, this mountain has a slope of negative 1 over 2. So the negative 1 tells me to go down. So I'm going to go down 1. The positive 2 tells me to go right 2 spaces. So negative tells me to go down because the negative y values are below the x-axis. And the positive 2 tells me to go right because the positive x values are to the right. So I do it from this blue point here. I go down 1 over 2 spaces and then put a dot. Down 1 over 2 spaces, put a dot. And I keep on going. And that gives me a bunch of points to be able to draw a line. However, I could also go the other way, and we need to be able to do that. So I could also represent this as a positive 1 over negative 2, because there's only one negative in both of the problems. Well, the positive 1 would tell me to go up 1, because it's positive. The negative 2 tells me to go left 2, because it is negative. And so I could also go up 1, left 2. Up 1, left 2. Up 1, left 2. And it gives me a lot of points to be able to draw a line through. And so the idea of slope is that we have constant slope when we have a line. Every time it always goes in the same direction. In this case, the line is going downhill from left to right. And so we consider that a negative slope, and that's what we have, is a negative number here. So there's our first one. So again, remembering that slope is always the change of y over change of x. Y's are always on top, x's are on the bottom. So let's go ahead and take a look at this next one. Again, we always start at a point. We need a point to start with, and then we can use the slope to draw the rest of the line. So here we're going to start at negative 3. So we're going to go down 3 spaces on that y-axis and put a dot. That's where we start. Now we use the slope. The slope of this line is 2. So again, I'm going to use that variable m to represent slope. And remember that slope is always the change of y. It's the y values. Y minus y1 we talked about yesterday over x minus x1. Those were the y values on top, x values on the bottom. So in our case, when we did that, we would end up with a 2 over 1. Now again, if you see just a number and it doesn't have a fraction, you can always write that as a fraction, 2 over 1. So what this is going to tell me to do is, since this is a positive 2, I'm going to end up going up. Since this is a positive 1, in the x direction, I'm going to go right. And then from there I can plot some points. So up 2 over 1 space, up 2 over 1. I can do that a bunch of times to come up with lots of points to represent that line. Now I could also go the other way, so remember we could rewrite this as a negative 2 over negative 1, because 2 negatives will cancel out. And then that would tell me to go down 2 and left 1 space. So again, I can go from that blue point, down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1. Then I've got a bunch of points to be able to draw a line through. And that's what you'll do next. Just draw that line through those points. And then arrows at the end showing that it goes on forever. Well, I've got a couple more examples here. Let's take a look at this next one. Here we've got just a positive 2 for the y-intercept. So for the y-intercept, again, that's where we're starting. We always start at a point. That's what we're doing here, is we're starting at positive 2. So we start there and plot that point up 2 spaces on the y-axis. And then we go to the slope. Now this slope is just 1. 1 is our slope here, so m equals 1. Now write it as a fraction, 1 over 1. Well, that tells me to go up again and then to the right because both are positive. So I'm going up and to the right. Do that a bunch of times. And I've got a lot of points to be able to draw a line through. But I could also go the other way. I could also say it is negative 1 over negative 1 because 2 negatives make a positive when you do division or multiplication. Well, that would tell me to go down negative 1 because the negative 1 on the top of the fraction tells me to go down, and the negative 1 on the bottom tells me to go left. So I go down 1, left 1, down 1, left 1. And you could do that a bunch of times to get points on that line. And then from there, we just connect those points with a line. And so we've got arrows at the end showing that it goes on forever. Well, here's another problem. Now we've got a slope of 0 and a y-intercept of negative 4. So again, we always have to start somewhere. In this case, we're starting at the y-intercept, and that's what we're going to be doing on the next, all the problems that are in this slope-intercept form, always starting at that y-intercept. So down 4 spaces, it's 2, 3, 4, put the dot right there, and then use the slope. Well, this time we have a different type of slope. We've got a slope of 0. So 0 means that we have 0 in the y direction, and any number could go down here. We could have 1, I guess, for now. So up 0 and over 1. So this is a horizontal line. We could also go the other way. We could treat it as up 0 over negative 1. And so whenever we've got a slope of 0, that means we've got our horizontal line. That's what our line will end up looking like. Just a horizontal line going through the y-axis, in this case at negative 4. So here we have 0 slope, and when we have 0 slope, again we have that horizontal line. So on the next problem, we're actually going to graph some lines ourselves given the slope and the y-intercept, and we'll see that in part 2.